Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. If anybody would like one of these agendas, they are out back right behind my friend Phil Bofia, next to the map on the wall. And before we get started, I will ask our chair to please stand and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is Community Notes. Community Notes is a time where if anybody has something they would like to speak about that is not already on the agenda tonight, and as everyone knows, the budget is on the agenda, so now's not the time for budget items. But if you have something else you would like to speak about or talk about, now would be the time to do it. We just ask you come tell us who you are, where you live, and what you have to say. Mr. Veer, I see you here to kick it off.
Bob Veer, Ward 7. I know this is community notes, but this is a note to the councilors in front of me from the community. I have been a resident of Waterville for 60 years. Ward 7, down in the plains of Abraham. Abraham Rancourt came in 1850 from Canada. Others followed. Take the lead. In 1935, a great man, our 32nd president, FDR, stated, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." I'm asking you, if you had anything to fear, I would not get comfortable in my seat tonight, because you all can be replaced when it comes time to elect our next council person. I have lived in my house for 60 years. It was built by my great-grandfather. I am the 6th generation that have lived there. I will not be scared out of my home by an 8.3% tax increase. Yes, it will make it hard on me. Yes, I will have to give some things up. And not to pat myself on the back, but I am a 3-time cancer survivor and have 8 heart attacks underneath my belt, plus other ailments. And I have never been as feared when I hear that a council person, and I saw this myself, put the fear of God into people, saying that our mayor was going to close the pool. I have never even heard of such a thing, but I am appalled that one of you did that, to put the fear of God into people that our mayor stated that he was going to close the pool. How can you misconstrue some words such as that? I saw that for myself, and I couldn't even approach that person because I knew what was going on. I do not fear. The only fear that I have is in the guy above. And I beg you, I implore you, if you raise your hand tonight to override the budget, I have no answers. I have some suggestions, and I'd be willing to serve on any committee. But if you raise your hand to override the veto tonight, I would fear that you would lose your seat by the community of Waterville that I have so very much loved, and I want my kids to love. I want my grandkids to love. I will not be thrown out of my home, nor will anybody else that I can help along the way. God bless you, and God bless America.
No applause, please. No applause. We want to make sure everybody's comfortable coming, no matter what views they have. And I just want to reiterate that if we want to talk about the budget or a tax increase, that we reserve that for Resolution 116-2018 under new business this evening. Hi, sir. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brian Phipps. I'm from Ward 6. I'm a high-cost main care patient. My cost of care has cost over $200,000 over the last 5 years, which the state of Maine is spreading out over amongst the people. One of my disabilities is PTSD, and it's being aggravated by the city of Waterville not policing the streets well enough. I know how to drive very well. I was a cab driver for over 5 years in Florida, and I've seen things that just set me off. You know, people running red lights, people passing me on one-lane streets, people going over the speed limit in ways that, where I come from, is just reckless. In the Walmart parking lot, people go down the wrong way, down one-lane aisles, and park the wrong way. I mean, it seems like it may be insignificant to some people, but, you know, community is about order. And on another note, I think it's disrespectful to the order of community that, you know, the pedestrians around here just kind of walk across the street, not in crosswalks, and just strut, you know, and they're like, I don't care, you got to stop for me, I'm a pedestrian. I think the cars and the pedestrians have to know how to respect the law, and I think the police have to do a better job.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else for community notes? Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Jacobs, and I represent the Waterville Public Library, and I would like to share an email that we received because it's something that I think is really important right now. It's from the United Way, and it more or less states that our head of patron services, Larry Dodge, contacted them yesterday, letting them know that the library is a cooling center for folks in the area over these next few days. I reached out to the 211 number, which is a number that people can call if they do need some assistance. So if Waterville local people call 211 looking for respite in the weather, the library is listed. And it says, well, thanks for your proactiveness. The library is actually the first resource listed on the Kennebec County MEMA list, and now working on to collect others for this location. And I just wanted to share that the library is open to all, and our air conditioning is running beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julian Payne, Ward 5. I'm actually here tonight because Councillor Lessing asked me to come and clarify myself about literature she was passing out from school board member, Ward 5. I gave him my time to this year's budget meeting and voiced a concern. I offered thoughts as a resident about the affordability of running a pool that sits closed for 10 months of the year. We all know the unique challenges that Waterville faces. I have a superintendent who will be asking me to approve his budget next year, 1/7 of it. As a school board member, I unabashedly advocate for schools before pools. You can't have your cake and eat it. My priority is to advocate for those that serve in our school system, from the superintendent to the janitor and the children who are our future. Your snippet from me was misleading, as was intended. I want to explore all the avenues and options that the children in our community can utilize in the summer to cool off. A lake to swim in, Snip Payne, is one of those, as are rivers and the ocean. Grandparents, friends, and neighbors also have pools. Camp Tracy offers scholarships to go out and use the lake for underprivileged kids. You proposed a civility bill and spoke of council meetings being a safe and tolerant place for members of the community to debate respectfully without fear. Yet you circulated a flyer with my private personal email and only snippets from the quote, knowing full well contacting me was futile. The council votes on the pool. The only purpose of this that it could serve would be to attack and divide and inflame members of the community. I've received nasty, threatening emails, personal attacks, rude phone calls, school board line jammed up since I spoke at this meeting, and none of those calls were from my wife. The fact that I even appeared on the flyer was superfluous. Is this the brand of civility? Luckily, I'm self-employed and work from home, so I do not have to worry about my employer being contacted. The flyer appears to be a way to channel much untapped anger and stick it to me for publicly supporting our mayor against the failed recall coup. I hope that the bottle of champagne that you had ready to pop for this event doesn't have an expiry date on it. I'm please asking that before you depart for Iowa, you try and not rip and divide the community any further during this time. And I'm announcing that I will now continue to call Waterville my home. The future looks brighter, and I will not be moving to Skowhegan. Thank you.
Brian Finch, Ward 6. I want to talk briefly about harassment. And during the recall, when we got death threats, well, let me back up. When we got intimidation threats, when we got calls for violence, when we knocked on people's doors and they threatened blood in the streets if we were successful, and then they turned around and called Patty and said we wouldn't let them look at the petition. We said, okay, Patty, we're just gonna tell people, they can look at the petition. When we'd show up at people's doors and talk to them about the recall, and they would say they support us, and then would turn around, call Patty, and say they were lied into signing the petition and spread those lies online. We said, okay, this is just the price that you have to pay for doing a recall. So by the time the death threats came, we, or I'll just speak for myself, were pretty immune to it in particular. I remember emailing or texting a counselor something that had happened online, and they immediately called me and said, oh my goodness, this is a death threat. Are you going to report this? And it hadn't even occurred to me that it was a death threat and it was something that needed to be reported. And at the time we thought, well, that's the price we pay for having such a divisive issue. And now, with this other divisive issue of the budget, and in particular the school board member from Ward 5 saying that he is also receiving intimidating emails and threats, I think there's a time for this to stop. It never should have started, and in particular, we on the recall never should have let it go on as long as it did, uncalled out. And so, Julian, in particular, I've got my receipts of death threats and intimidation tactics, threats of blood in the streets, threats to riot outside of our homes. If you've got yours as well, I think we go straight to the press and name and shame these people. These people have had no fear attaching their names to it beforehand, and maybe that stops these threats and these intimidation. Nick and I were just talking before the meeting. I don't hate Nick. I don't hate anyone. We can disagree on policy, and it doesn't have to turn into what it's turning into over and over again. So, Julian, I hope you're with me, and I hope we can together just put a stop to this. And if anybody else has any death threats they'd like to add to the list, let's just name and shame. I've got them. I've got receipts. I've got people's names attached to them. So.
I had plenty during the recall, if it makes you feel better.
You'd like to send them on over?
But as I said at the last meeting, the recall's over. I don't want to relive it. I don't think anyone in this community wants to relive it. We're going to get through this budget one way or another like we always do. And there's all these great, amazing things that continue to happen here. And hopefully we can all get back to working on those things. Yes?
Spence Conley, Ward 6. I still think, 6. Kind of what I plan to say and what I'm actually going to say are two different things, so forgive me a little bit. There's a lot of division I'm hearing, and I know I've been told I can be kind of scary and intimidating, so if I intimidated anybody out there, I apologize. My voice carries. I have no intention to hurt anybody physically. And that brings me to my today's history lesson. At the end of the Civil War, Maine's own Joshua Chamberlain was given the honor of accepting the South's formal surrender. As he watched men who tried to kill him just days before march by, he ordered his men to shoulder arms. It was a simple gesture meant to honor and show them that, hey, we welcome you back. In his own autobiography, Chamberlain said several Confederate officers approached him afterwards, pointing to the American flag and saying, "That is the flag I now serve, sir. Thank you." And I'm saying, you guys as counselors have an opportunity to give us a simple gesture. Show Waterville that you're willing to work with them. I will offer my creativity as somebody who lives on a very limited income, ways to cut and make budgets. And that's enough of the budget talk. But I do want to say to anybody out there, make a gesture. If you feel threatened, let me know. I may not look that big and intimidating, but I will stand by you, left, right, whatever side you fall on politically. This is Waterville. We do not eat our own. That can happen in New York or San Francisco or other parts of the world. It doesn't happen here. We are a community, and we should remain a community. And Council, I know I've come out here and like I said, I've been very passionate and I respect your passion. I don't have a lot to offer as far as a simple gesture, but I will salute, as that's the only thing I can really do and afford. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Is anybody else for a community note?
Phil Bofier, Ward 2. Just here to pass the word along. I am involved with Habitat for Humanity Waterville. I'm the new president of Habitat, and we're always looking for volunteers. Right now we're building a home at the south end, and we're looking to see if you have building skills, and if you want to lay a hand, you can reach out to me or look on our website. We would love to have you. Come give us a hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Phillips Sandy, resident of Ward 3, and I would like to thank our outgoing city councilor, Lauren Lessing, for her service to Ward 3 and to the city of Waterville. It's not an easy job, and by the way, Lauren asked me if I were interested in having it, and I said not in a million years. No, thank you. So I would just like to publicly say, and I'm sure there are many, many, many residents of Ward 3 who would, if they were here, stand with me to say thank you, Lauren, God bless you, and good luck in Iowa. We'll miss you.
Thanks. I've gotten some nice baked goods.
Hi, greetings, council and people here. My name is Bruce White, Ward 7. I'm here to just thank everybody for the support. I recently won the primary in District 109, and so I'll be on the ballot November 6th. And I would agree with what Rian said about we can disagree on issues, but we can be respectful. And that, in fact, was a message that I had to many of the people that I spoke with over the past few months. And I will just tell you that, you know, if there's any, I will do my best if elected in November. I will work hard for this city, and I know there are a lot of challenges, but I think we have a lot of things that we all have in common. We have a lot of common goals, and we should just work on those things, and the things we disagree with, we can obviously still have our passions about, but again, I will do my best if elected in November. And thank you all for the support you've given me to this point.
Thanks, Bruce. Is there anybody else for community notes?
I would like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Denise Chamberlain. I'm a taxpayer from Ward 3. And I just wanted to say something briefly, and I know you're going to be judging on this, but I live close enough to North Street Pool. I see families walk by with picnic baskets. I see children riding their bikes. I see children pass by all the time. I know that this is an added expense, but I think it's a worthwhile expense for these children. Even though it's 6 to 7 weeks, it's a place for them to go. Not everybody has vehicles to go to lakes or beaches. Not everybody can afford a pool in their backyard. This is their entertainment. This is their fun time, cool time, and I think it's important for us to realize it for the children. And it's not just Waterville that enjoys it, it's all the surrounding towns. And people can't afford camps either, so please keep that in mind for the ones that are less fortunate. And even those that are hard workers, as myself, I would not want my child swimming in a river. So, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that you would come up and comment to that, and I do want to say to reaffirm that nobody sitting up here said we wanted to close the pool, so I apologize that that kind of went out there, but I appreciate the message.
No, I just wanted to say how important I think it is for the town.
Thank you. You have a community note?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment on the pool as well. I actually, just in response to that last thing, I do think it's okay to swim in the stream here in town. I do it on a regular basis. I don't think it's that bad. But that being said, we use the pool all the time. And I agree, I'm just adding my voice to what I hope is a chorus. We were late getting here. But yeah, the community pool is a part of the community. It is an important part of the community. And I understand that it's not making money. But I don't see that as being the purpose of the community pool. I see the purpose of the community pool as serving for a place for those in the community to come together recreationally and form community bonding time. I think that the value of that exceeds the deficit that it causes in the budget. It's very important. There are other less monetarily quantifiable aspects of the. I don't know. Maybe I'm not addressing what is actually an issue here. I don't know. I'm just. I heard.
That's okay. Steve. Add your voice.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what community notes is for.
Yeah. I dragged my kids along with me today because our bodies are still smell like the chlorine in the city pool right now. We've been on our bikes all day and spent the afternoon there. And it was an important day for our family. Would you like to say why? This is my daughter, Isla. What happened to you today?
I passed my swim test there.
What else did you do?
Also, we went down the big water slide, which was really fun, and I kept saying, that's going to be over, and then I said, let's do it again.
Yeah. So those were two firsts for her at the city pool. She treaded water for a minute and swam the length of the pool like a big girl, and so she has full access to that. So you want to add anything, Roa? How long have you been using the water slides then?
I can't remember. Ever since I was maybe 6, 5.
Yeah, that's right. So, anyways, and beyond the city pool, I think the city pool is an important part of the picture in the summertime for the future of Waterville. What I need to see from my community leaders, and I thank all of you for your service. I'm glad that we have a diverse body of people on the city council here, and I hope as one of your constituents you can come up with creative ways to form yes, deal with budgetary issues, real budgetary issues, problems that the city is facing with what is, in my opinion, has been not the most prudent policies over the last course of several years. But we're coming to terms with that now and trying to figure out how to remain solvent as a town. But I also would say that for the future, we need vision. We need vision for constructing the future of Waterville. Remaining solvent, being fiscally responsible, but having vision so that young people that grow up in our community value what they had as children here, those kinds of connections that they made at places like the city pool, and want to remain here so that we can continue to, yes, take care of people in the community, the elderly who may be on fixed income, but also attract younger families that can help grow our tax base. We need to be able to have constituents that can add to the revenue of Waterville. And the pool is one of those things that's part of that. The entire complex I would hope that it becomes a priority because it's more than just a place to cool off in the summer. It's a real asset. I won't take any more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
We are going to move to the disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there anybody on the council who feels they have a conflict of interest with any of the votes they will take tonight? No, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay. Unfinished business, resolution 102, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorization issuance of an outdoor dining permit to you-know-who's pub.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, we're here for discussion. Mike, do you want to give the update?
Yes, and I want Nick to help me.
Great.
Really, the first thing I want to say is thanks to Nick Champagne, our city engineer, because over the last 2 weeks, we've worked very hard with all of the concerned parties, not only You-Know-Who's Pub, Italia, the abutting property owners, and I think we're at a point tonight of being able to say to you that, you know, the main concern that was expressed at the last meeting by Kennebec Federal Savings Bank, that concern has been allayed. The fire chief did an inspection regarding fire safety, being able to get access to the buildings if part of the street was closed. There's still a couple of issues with the propane tanks, but those are, I think, pretty easily fixed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think unless anyone else here has questions about the section of street to be closed or concerns, I know that both Italia and You-Know-Who's probably here. If there are any questions for them.
I'll just add to that, Mike, by saying that the state liquor inspector did come and take a look at the site in regards to the proposal. They have some conditions with the approval with an outdoor dining facility like that, more or less being the separation between the two dining areas, and also some signage requirements and fencing around the area as well. So other than that, the email that I sent to you this afternoon kind of sums up where we stand on that. Alan Raincourt from Kennebec Federal Savings responded in approval to try this for a year, and as well as Hairworks provided a letter of concern that was already addressed by Kevin Joseph recently, and that was provided to you in that email as well. So if there's any other questions, you can feel free to let us know.
Nick, how many weeks is that section of the concourse going to be used for dining?
I believe the intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the intent is August 1st to October 1st.
Okay, and years going forward, are they thinking about making it an extended period?
So the intent would be to bring it before the council. The idea is to have this as a trial period this year, see how it goes, and if there's any kinks in the armor, if you will, we'll iron them out over the winter, and then come back to you guys. The intent for next year would be to propose a May 1st to October 1st closure. City.
Yeah, I just want to say that being involved with this project along with Winifred Tate, I can't think of anything. Well, I can think of some things, but this is one of the things that is one of the most positive things for the city to do, is to be a partner in helping sustain local business. I cannot say that enough because that is so valuable to the infrastructure of this city and the revenue intake, and showing that we are there hand in hand to help sustain local business. And I'm telling you, this is the creme of the creme here, when we can have officials from the city come out and arm in arm and have compromises with business owners, managers, and have an impact, a positive impact this is going to have on sales and transactions. Being in the hospitality business, I can tell you, I've been in the hospitality business for 30 plus years. I've done a lot of profit and loss statements in my time. And I'm telling you, businesses that are in this type of bracket have to be innovative and creative with the way they do things. And this is an excellent idea of what these two businesses are proposing and what they're going to do. And it's going to add to the flavor, the atmosphere of the city of Waterville. It's going to make us really an outstanding place to come and dine entertainment. I mean, with the news that's going on through downtown, we're having the Waterville Opera House, you know, with these live bands that are coming in this summer. Just the atmosphere of Waterville is just beaming, and I think the whole city council, and I think all the residency in Waterville is in agreement with this, that we need to continue doing these types of things. Business-friendly atmosphere is everything, folks. This is what it's all about, and this is how we should conduct business in the city of Waterville.
If I may briefly second Sydney's comments, I would like to thank Nick and all the business owners that surround this side of the concourse, because I think people really came together and worked through concerns. I know there were some initially some pretty serious concerns, and I'm really pleased that we've come to an agreement that everybody supports and everyone has signed off on. I think that's really positive for the city. In one of the meetings I suggested, and I think people agreed that this is a trial period, so if anyone does have any concerns, please let me, or I guess Nick, volunteer you, about traffic, about pedestrians, because one of the things we're doing is studying what the impact is. Hopefully it will all be positive, but if there are any issues that come up, I'm happy to work to address them, and I think this is going to be a really important pilot project for how businesses can move forward with expanding their outdoor dining options, and I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, are there any questions or comments from the public?
Matt Cullen, Ward 4. Will any of the local residents be allowed to bring their lunch and sit down at the, the gated off area? The outdoor dining area?
So the park will remain an open area. The area of the concourse that is closed during the business hours will be, my understanding is that will be an area the tables are owned and operated by the restaurants. But that's not going to impede anyone's access to the park, which remains public.
But there would be chairs where the restaurants are, and they're on the city property.
Yeah.
Well, there's benches though in the park, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
What if they wanted to sit around people? Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? And we move on to Resolution 103, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorization issuance of an outdoor dining permit to Italia.
Move to adopt.
Second.
This just goes to that last one. All in favor? Okay. Next is Resolution 104, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
A resolution providing for authorization issuance of an outdoor dining permit to 18 below.
I have a motion to adopt.
Oh, motion to adopt.
Second.
All right. Nick.
Yeah, so the 18 below proposal, the original proposal before you was to occupy 2 parking spots for the duration of August 1st to October 1st. That has since changed. John Fortier, owner of State Farm, and Travis LaJoy, owner of 18 Below, came in for a meeting. We discussed a variety of different proposals and variations to the proposal. And John Fortier, in good gesture, offered up the area sidewalk in front of his business for outdoor dining. So in agreement to that, Travis agreed to pull his request for use of the parking spots, so they came to a good resolution to both their issues. So what will happen is after 5 o'clock, Travis will pull out his tables for the 18 Below business after the business hours of State Farm. Yep, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry?
On a trial basis?
Yes, so this one, as with the other one, is a trial basis, August 1st to October 1st. And we'll revisit it, take a look at it, and if there's any concerns at that particular time, if we need to revisit it, we'll do that at that time.
And because it's staying on the sidewalk, actually, you don't have to approve it under the ordinance the city has. The city clerk can issue the permit to 18 Below without having to have a council vote. You can certainly vote on it, but if it stays on the sidewalk as it's planned, then the clerk handles it.
Yeah, the only additional proposal
that John and I spoke about and the gentleman spoke about at the meeting is the problem with doing just a sidewalk is that at this end, because it's so short, is that the vehicles will park right in front of the restaurant. And therefore, my patrons are, you know, when the vehicles start up, there's fumes, there's nothing to view. At the other end, you got your people watching, things like that. So the only thing I would propose or ask of City Council is that after 5 o'clock, if I could cone those parking spots off to avoid that, allow me to really do business, because without that, without blocking those off at night, I'm not gonna do any business, you know, and obviously that's my proposal, is to do business.
Was that a proposal that you had thought of before tonight?
Yes, well, it was something that we suggested at the meeting. John was in agreement to.
I don't recall that part of the meeting.
Oh, do you recall part of the meeting?
We bring it up today. You had talked about putting barricades there, like concrete barriers, and that was kind of discouraged because you couldn't, that would capture the parking spaces all day long, and that was...
Right, so that's not what we're suggesting at all, John. Just,
it's a change.
It's something new from when we met last week.
We had this conversation.
Today?
No.
I called you, you didn't call me back.
No, we had this conversation, and John was in agreement with it at the time, but from what I recall...
Wait a minute, Travis. I was not in agreement. Most of what you have offered, I have not been in agreement with. And I compromised, and I'm happy to suggest that you use the space in front of my office. I'm very...
No, that was generous, and I appreciate it, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
However, changing anything else and again, preventing parking from occurring was not on the table.
Motion to table to our next meeting.
Second. All in favor? Now, the clerk can still issue a dining permit for the sidewalk, regardless of this.
That can happen. Yep. Question about coning off 2 spaces comes back.
That'll come back, correct?
They can talk about that, maybe they can work something out.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Next is Order 109, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Order providing for acceptance of a bid for municipal slide pool replacement.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Matt, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, sorry. Matt Skane, Parks and Recreation Director. Sorry I missed the last meeting, although I heard that one went very well with a unanimous vote. We got 2 bids. I want to thank Nick Champagne for helping me write up the all the formal part of the bids, and 2 of them came in, which is what we expected. They were about $100,000 apart. Vortex Aquatic came in at $762,702, while Weston and Sampson came in at $875,000. We have, with the Alphon grant of $560, along with our $274 in surplus, we have $834. So we have about $71,000 more than what we need if there are no change orders or any problems with the construction. So we feel like we're in really good shape with Vortex, very reputable group, and we would get a structure that would last 25 to 30 years.
And so if it stays under bid, that 71.3 will go back, will just remain in that account.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's probably up to you guys.
We do have a lot of improvements on the pool itself coming up, right, man?
Oh, there are other,
But
yeah.
meaning if nothing were to happen, that money
it would go
stay.
back into that designated fund, I would assume. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right, because it wouldn't have come out.
Yeah.
Any other questions, my friends? Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Are we able to have a pool area without a slide?
Of course.
And I know that right now you're asking for $762,702. What are you asking for next year to finish the repairs that need to be done?
Right. That's a good question. So I wouldn't want people to be misled as if this fix was going to fix our pool for 25 or 30 years. we're looking at within the next, it's hard to say, 2 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, having to put over $1 million into the main pool, the spray pads.
And so has anyone investigated the possibility of the Alphons diverting the $560,000 that they have given towards general overall repair of the pool? We're not talking about closing the pool, Ms. Lessing. We're talking about general overall repair rather than putting that much money into one area.
Right, no, we haven't done that.
Matt, is there a possibility that we could request more funds from the Alphon when we came to that point a year or so from now? We need $1 million?
That's kind of what we're anticipating, Counselor, is that we do a great job, you know, with this money that they gave us. And we come in under budget, and we've got a great product that's going to last 25 or 30 years. So then it makes it much easier to go back and say, hey, listen, we did this. Now we need help, you know, we need help again. What can you do?
The 274 in the designated pool reserve account, is that the total amount that's in there, or is there more in there? For
No,
later?
that's the total amount, yeah.
I would like to think, with your own words, Matt, I know that you have been very involved with the Waterville Municipal Pool, and you've been an outstanding resource over there, along with several others, including the Boys Club, Girls Club, YMCA. I can't think of anything better to suggest than to have Harold Alphon be involved with a possible another grant or fundraising to help offset the cost of repairing the pool in the long term. I do believe the Waterville Municipal Pool is an asset. I've had many constituents come to me and express that concern. You know, I definitely feel like there's a clamor for more support for this and not. I think we need to look at things like more of a public city partnership on this stuff and going into the future. I've already had consultation with some councilors on possible, once this slide goes in, that there is a review Parks and Rec committee to authorize maybe raising the fees to make it more fiscally solvent to maintain the pool and not be in the red anymore. We have been in the red on your own account several times in the past,
right?
But we've been able to offset some of that from a fiscal standpoint. So I do believe great resources that you have at your disposal, including a personal friend of many on this council is Ken Walsh. I can't think of anybody that can raise money in a more quicker fashion than Ken Walsh. He is just absolutely incredible all the way around in what he can do, and I think we employ those resources to make the municipal pool more solvent, fiscally responsible, and I think this is an asset that can really cultivate a lot of different things, and definitely there's definitely a lot of support being shown here for it.
Great.
Matt, just a point of clarification. It's my understanding that the fees actually pay for the annual cost.
They come pretty close.
Right. I mean, it's a fairly break even. It's what we're talking about. I don't think it's an annual. It's more the long-term maintenance of how we save for that. Is that more accurate depiction that the fees that people pay now essentially run the operation for the current year?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I can say I'm proud of this number. When I began here 11 years ago, first of all, we run that pool, that facility, as efficiently as we possibly can. We buy our chemicals in bulk. There's no overtime. I mean, it is right down to, we don't buy anything we don't need. We use materials from last year if we can. But when I began, the pool lost between $20,000 and $30,000 a year every year. Over the last 5 years, we've lost $22,000 total. And I know that's not a good number, but we
collectively over 5 years.
Over 5 years, so an average of $4,000 or $5,000 a year is what we've lost, and it's all dependent on what breaks. You know, if things don't break, if pumps don't go, if structures don't go, we're gonna be really close to breaking even. But all it takes is one big item to put us back $6,000 or $8,000.
And minimum wage increasing.
Yeah, that didn't help us.
Yeah.
All right, I see we have, we'll go to council first.
Yeah. Last year, did we come out in the black?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we made $4,000 last year.
Okay.
Yep.
And just to clarify, you're asking us for roughly $202,000. It's $202,000, $202,702. Yes, to meet the matching grant. That's like more than a 2-to-1.
Right. Well, it's 274 is what we have. So the 762,702 doesn't include a contingency. So if we built in a 8 to 10% contingency, we're gonna need that. We're gonna need the 274.
And the 274 is what enables us to get a 2-to-1 matching.
Right. I'm not sure if that's really how it went. No, it didn't go quite that way. We told the Alpine Foundation what we had, and we had a quote about what we thought it would cost to do this, and they made up the difference.
And they made up the difference.
So that's how it worked. Yeah.
We
could have told them we had less, but that wouldn't have been.
That would have been misleading.
You know, I'm glad we didn't do that. But.
I see 3 questions from citizens 4, so I'm going to go in order as I see the hands. We'll go Dan, Cassie, Kathy, and then we'll go back over this way. So Dan first.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. This is just a microcosm of the problem we're having. This is like the cart before the horse. We say we're going to need $1 million over the next few years to use a slide that if you don't get that money from the Alphon, we're not going to be able to use because the pool's not going to. I mean, so what good is the pool, the slide without a pool? That doesn't make any sense to me. And when I hear that the money's, if we have extra money, it's going to go back in that account, you know, from the master of the TIF shell game, I get a little concerned about that because I don't really believe that money's going to go where it came from because it really doesn't go where it's supposed to go from that side of the room sometimes. So I'm very concerned when I hear we want to build something for something we don't know is going to be able to be funded. Why not take care of the pool first and come back and take care of the slide later? That just seems to make a lot more sense to me. I'd like to have a pool that I can slide into. So that.
I think because the pool, we can still continue to maintain and repair the pool. I don't know how long, maybe 5 years.
But without a major
One at a time, Dan.
You said the plan was to go back to the Alphons. We don't know what they're going to say. We hope they'll say something, but we don't know. This is why we have a budget problem, because we do things without knowing. So let's do it right, please.
Cass.
Thanks. Matt, do the slides add any intrinsic value? Do you feel like, what do you think would be, aside from the joy that my son also, Tom left, rode the slide for the first time this year. He was like waiting all year last year. It was awesome. It was so cool to see him. But aside from that personal joy I got from seeing my kid do that, do they add intrinsic value? Do you think they, like how many other municipal pools have slides?
Just one in Bangor.
Just one other in the state?
That I know of.
Okay.
Right, just one. So it's very unique and it's very special.
Do you think that helps us recoup fees from like childcare programs?
Yes.
Think that
I don't think we
slides have
get.
not always been there.
Yeah, well, they've been there since the new pool went in 20 years ago.
All right.
They've been part
Have
of
they
the
really?
19, 20 years.
Oh, so old. But okay.
Yeah,
So
I think our numbers would drop off drastically if we didn't have that feature.
I think that it appeals to the older demographic of kids that just are.
Well, both, because one of them is more geared for the the teens, and the other one is geared for the little guys. Yeah. So, and we're open for typically 8 or 9 weeks a year, not 5 or 6.
I didn't say 5 or 6. Kathy, actually, and if people actually, I'm going to actually ask people, are you getting people on the camera, or do they need to come to the mic? Okay. So maybe, I've been trying to let people stay where they are because the room is pretty packed, but if we could, when we have a question, just actually make it to the podium. Mrs. Weeks, do you want to come up and come to the podium?
I just had a question for Matt, because we're in such a severe crisis here with our property taxes. Has anyone discussed going back to the Alphon to ask them for the 272? Because, you know, 272 to that organization is like $2. They must know what a crisis we're in regarding.
I think we've all thought about it. It's all kind of.
So has it been done?
It hasn't been done.
Because I think it would be worth trying to go back and explain.
Kathy, if you, and I'm going to
Where
ask
do you want me to stand?
No, Matt, you're fine. I just want to make sure people are directing comments to the council more than Matt. So he
Sorry,
can hear
he
you.
was
No,
the,
no. Yeah, I
the
know.
pool guy.
Come on, he needs to come up here. So. The purpose of having you here is to have you on the record on the microphone.
My question was, has anyone approached the Alphon Foundation for this 274? Because everyone in the state knows what a crisis we're in with the property tax. If they haven't, it would be worth going to speak to these people about that. And I do agree with the comment about why do we need the slide if we know that massive repairs need to be done to the pool? You know, to go back and next year ask for $1 million. So I just wanted to get clarification if that avenue has been explored, and the answer is no. So, thank you.
I can address some of those questions, because I'm the one who made the call to the Alphon Foundation early in the spring, because we knew we had real serious problems with the slides. So the answer to the question, why'd you do the slide instead of the pool, the slide is much, much more in need of repair than the pool. Matter of fact, are you going to keep one slide closed this summer?
Oh yeah, it's closed. Right.
Okay, so it's not even usable. That's why the slides had to come first. So when the pool was built and slides, 19 years ago, the Alphon Foundation and the City of Waterville split the cost 50-50. So when I approached the Alphon Foundation in the spring about help, we didn't have 50% for the cost of the slides. So they very graciously said, how much do you have? We have 274. How much is it going to cost? About 800. We'll supply the rest. So that's how the numbers came to be on the slide end of things. With the pool, like Matt said, it's probably, we're facing $1 million total with everything else. And that's probably going to be more on the 50-50 sharing. So that's what we're looking at for the rest of the structure.
Mike, would it be smart to explain just real quickly how we get money from, the Alphons? I mean, it's not like a phone call or an email where you ask.
No, we have to submit an application.
Yeah. And it takes months.
And it takes months, and it goes in front of their board, and they consider our proposal along with all the others they have, because they have many. And I mean, they certainly have an interest in this because of the money they already invested, even though it was 19 years ago. It's an investment they made. And obviously they care about city water.
Right, very much. If I could just add, somebody who has worked in non-for-profits like my whole career and has applied for a lot of grants, the match that an applicant provides is seen by the grantor as it's like a trust that it ensures for them that the community cares enough about this thing that you're asking them to help fund, that you won't walk away from it 2 years later if there's a problem, right? It's a way of knowing that the community is invested in that thing that they're going to also invest their money in. So that's why foundations often ask for matches of some kind.
Oh, Mr. V will have you next.
Anthony from Ward 6. I got a question for Matt. You said that the kids wouldn't come if we didn't have a slide.
I don't think we'd get the numbers that we get now.
Can I get a copy of the data that supports that?
It's anecdotal. I can't promise you that we'll have as many people, but they rave about the slides. All the kids do.
I just can't imagine tomorrow it's supposed to be hot that they
Oh,
wouldn't
no,
go to school because there's no slide.
Yeah, people would still go for sure.
Wtvl Ward 7. I don't want to date myself, but I remember going to the municipal pool and it was asphalted. Can't remember if there was a tin slide or something, but it wasn't much. And we got wet. We had to go through a shower before and out and this and that. I think the cost was 25 cents.
You are dating yourself.
I am. Thanks, Mike. I agree. My 3 grandkids, I have twins that are 4 years old and a 12-year-old grandson. They love the pool. They love the slides. Don't get me wrong. And I read the Harold Alphon grant, and I understand that Waterville has money. But like Dan said, we can't put the cart before the horse. And that's what we do all the time. All the time we put the cart before the horse before we know that the horse can carry the load. And it has to stop. It has to. I'm recommending that the council does pass the slide. But we can't continue to do this. And we can't rely on Colby College, the Harold Alfond Foundations, Stephen King Foundations. We can't. I don't know if it's getting back to the roots, I guess. I'm a genealogist. Roots is everything to me. Back to the barn raising thing. If you want something done, maybe if you ask, somebody can fiberglass something. Maybe 20 men can erect it. We don't need to contract out time and time and time again all these projects. $300,000 for a river walk. If you would have asked, I would have blood, sweat, and teared myself down there putting pavers down. And I'm sure there's some other people here that would. I'm proud of Waterville, and I don't mind putting in some blood, sweat, and tears for my city. But this has got to stop. We can't rely on everybody else. And please, don't put the cart before the horse, ever again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy Sullivan, and I just have one other clarifying point then. If the pool is going to need another $1 million for repair within the next 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and as Mr. Roy says, it's going to probably take a 50-50 match. Where's our 50% coming from, and when are we going to start saving that money? Or are 5 years from now, we're going to come back and say, we have to raise the taxes again because we weren't prepared to make the repairs that need to be done. Thank you.
Start fundraising now.
Revenue sharing. We'll be back.
Matt Cullen, Ward 4. I have two questions. The first one is, does the pool work without the slide?
Yeah, it does.
The second one that I have is that if we look at the city as our home, if we were in our home and we had a crack in the side of the house or a leaky roof, or we had a slide that was broken, which one would we fix? Let's be honest with each other. We all tell our kids, we can't do this because we have to fix this. That's a very common thing in my household. I'm sure it's a very common thing in everyone's household. I'm just confused as why we're putting the premium on the slide and not the other problems.
Isn't it because those other problems aren't for 5 years though?
Somebody on the Parks and Rec Committee could probably answer that better than I could. I believe that was the answer that was given earlier.
I don't.
I'm Mary Ann Bernier, and I'm the school board member from Ward 4. And I know this is about the pool, but it's about also planning ahead. The high school needs to be finished, and it has to do with accreditation. $270,000 isn't going to cover it. But in this budget times, we have to prioritize what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. You might not even be able to do that this year, the high school, but at some point we're going to have to do it. People can't afford more taxes, but we're going to have to pick and choose and plan ahead, which are terms you always use, Nick. Thank you.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I think sometimes we talk about bonds and capital projects, but we leave out the conversation with the school district quite a bit on needs. I know there's some boilers that need to be replaced and whatnot as well. So.
School accreditation's good too, though.
Dan Chesay, Ward 6. Just curious, did the pool slide just break down suddenly or just over time from regular use?
Over time.
So how long has Parks and Rec been saving or planning to replace the pool? I mean, the slide.
Well, we learned 3 years ago when we had a study done that the slides were on their way out. And of course, kids are getting cut and the piers are starting to break down. The concrete piers are starting to break down.
So it seems like a better plan for the future needs to take place, right? If you're waiting 3 years to make a plan to replace the slide?
Well, we had attempted to put money away each year.
the money that we proposed to put in that reserve was always canceled out because of the concern about taxes. Pretty hard to convince people to put money in a special reserve when their taxes are going up. So it's been very hard to do. We've managed to put 274 away, which I think is pretty good.
So there really is no long-term plan then?
The long-term planning started 3 years ago when we had the engineering study.
Okay, so next year you're gonna tell us this is what you need, and then the next year you're gonna tell us this is what you need. And-
Well, I think we're telling you now that within 5 or 6 years, I can't predict we're gonna need probably $1 million to fix the main pool.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I mean, it's a pool that's 19 years old. If some of you have a pool in your backyard that's 19 years old, you probably know it's going to need attention at some point.
No.
Right?
If it doesn't.
No?
Well, yeah, but you don't wait until the last
minute. We haven't waited.
Give me the
Well, Bruce White again. Thanks.
Order.
I think it's great. We get a lot of the facts, so that's wonderful. And I think most of my question was answered on the 274,000. So that's been over a 3-year period that it's been put away, or
Probably
longer?
over a little bit longer period than that.
Okay. And that was out of the budget.
Yeah.
So in theory, you know, in best case scenario, we'd have to put 100,000 a year for the next 5 years. If we thought we were going to get 500,000 from the Alphon Foundation, if we were able to, and we put 100,000 a year for the next 5 years, that would be best case, I guess. And we'd have $1 million. And I know that's a tough sell to get 100,000, but we need to think about it now, obviously. And I know,
And maybe start talking to
You
people
know,
like Mr. Veer suggested,
you know.
start talking to contractors. A lot of people will donate time and
yeah.
materials.
So thanks for the facts anyway. I mean, that was just kind of like, because if we wait another year and we think it's going 5, we're going to need 125,000, and wait another year after that. So, and there's no guarantee we get the 500, but you know, if we do the right things, I think the foundation has been very good to us, and let's hope for the best. So, but I'm a numbers guy, and I like to just lay out those figures. So.
Julian Payne, Ward 5, I'll be brief. So this apparently is the longest debate I've ever heard at a council meeting on one issue. So what it tells me is there's many people...
No, we've had long.
Well, okay. There's many people in the community that had the same concerns as me, that I raised at an initial budget meeting, and this is good debate. We all care about the same thing. So it really shows the negative toxic hit piece that was put out at me at the pool really wasn't that warranted, because a lot of people have the same concerns and questions, and we're trying to make the buck go far. And I hope there's flyers for all of you who spoke today next Saturday at the pool. Thank you.
Hey, Matt. I just wanted to ask you a question. You said that the only other town is Bangor that has a slide?
I thought Bangor,
Okay.
yeah, with a municipal.
Just sticks out in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that Portland, Auburn, Lewiston, cities that are much bigger than this city, all decided not to have slides at their pools, right? Augusta's got 4 or 5 pools. Small pools. Yeah. So they've fiscally been responsible enough maybe not to do it.
All right.
Move to vote.
I would like to let these last 3 people who made it to the line, Rian, you'll be the third, you're the last. Let's let these 3 speak since they've been waiting, and then we'll move on to the vote. Thank
Hi,
you,
Cindy Jacobs, Ward 4. It's my understanding that the $274,000 has been put aside in a restricted fund that is used only for pool repair? Is that correct or not?
Correct.
Okay. So that money cannot be used for anything else other than repairing the pool?
No, the council could vote to take it and use it for other things.
Okay. But it was put away for pool repair?
Originally.
Okay.
It's called the Pool Reserve Fund.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alan Apotheker. I'm new to Waterville. You could say I don't have a dog in the fight. We moved here last summer. I moved up from Connecticut a couple of years ago, and there's a reason I left Connecticut. Because they keep raising the taxes, and we can't afford to live there. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and I'm an insurance guy. And I don't know, it seems to me common sense is, someone mentioned before, if your roof is gonna leak, Should I fix the leak? Or, gee, maybe I should go out to dinner and go on a vacation? I would opt to fix the leak. And I think it's great that you folks have a slide at the pool, but I don't think that's the priority. And you can't keep taxing folks or they're gonna leave. And that's a sad fact. I mean, I know Connecticut, they're losing people hand over fist. They're moving out. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Guess why? The taxes are crazy. And you don't want to wind up in the same situation as some of those states. Just one person's opinion.
Thank you.
You can have a brown bag lunch.
That's what Queens are doing.
Reen Finch, Ward 6. I just want to say I've been to budget meetings on and off for the past 3 years, and I think at every single one of them, every single department has asked for money to put aside for maintenance. And it's been cut and cut and cut. They've asked for funds. They've said, we know these repairs are coming, and this money's been cut. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. And then a truck breaks down, and we have to repair it. And in the long run, this delayed maintenance just costs us more money. So how we're having this discussion right now about the pool is really kind of an emblematic problem of how the city budget has been run and how they've been budgeting for long-term maintenance. We kind of seem to look at the short term of, I don't want my taxes to go up, instead of looking at the long term of, but my taxes keep going up because we keep having these costlier and costlier repairs. I'm not saying necessarily that the pool would be cheaper if it had not been delayed this long, but just this is a problem, and it's not about the pool not trying to save money for it or not trying to save money for the repairs that are going to be needed for the pool. They've been asking for this money, and it keeps getting stripped, and it's department-wide across all city departments. Thanks.
All right, and we are going to move to a vote now. This is for all those in favor.
It's a roll call, isn't it?
No, this is unfinished business. Yeah, I'll have a roll call, please. Thank you.
Counselor Sol?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor DuPont?
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next is ordinance 110, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An ordinance providing for amendment to marijuana moratorium ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Mike, have we had any, has there been any progress on opening this committee and getting this going? Who we're going to invite? We talked about making a diverse group of people, or is this just authorizing that and that's going to come?
Right. I assume the appointment of the committee would come after this step. I have had a couple people approach me who want to serve on the committee, including one counselor, at least one. So I think within a couple of meetings, we can come back with a proposed committee, and that committee can then start meeting.
Can we just make sure that the city does its part to get the information out there that we're looking for committee members?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that we have people who have more experience than probably a lot of us on
Sure.
kind of the nature of these laws. I think sometimes, I know in the past, it's been a lot of us city officials trying to figure out stuff that we don't really know about when it comes to marijuana, as far as regulatory policy and state policy. Can we just make sure that we get that information out there we're looking for it and get that published maybe on social media?
And has the state legislature finalized their policy?
Well, they have. They have adopted a law recently that covered, as a matter of fact, I had to clip it out of the newspaper so I could keep it as a handy guide because it covers so many different things,
Right.
the medical piece, the recreational piece.
And that wasn't vetoed by the governor?
Not to my knowledge, and I don't know for sure.
No. All right.
But it looks like the recreational piece won't come into effect until 2019 at some point.
Okay.
So I think this moratorium extension is important for us to get our...
This is the final one, right?
Yeah. The final extension.
Final extension.
Final extension until January. Yeah.
6 months.
So that brings us to 2019.
Yes, of course. We absolutely are open. Mr. Veer is actually at the podium, and then Tom, why don't you come right up behind Mr. Veer?
Yeah.
I just want to know how you know. We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Waterville, Ward 7. I'm a licensed caregiver for medical marijuana. I would like to serve on that committee, Mr. Roy. I was here 6 months ago when this got kicked down the road, same as the state. Finally, the state stepped up and took it under their wings and came up with something. I'm going to kindly ask, I don't know if it can be possible that instead of 6 months moratorium, that this can be cut down to 2 months, so that we can take a bright look at this come September and move forward with that. I don't think it's going to take that much from a committee. Love to have more the merrier, but this is a way to generate taxes.
We can always lift
Believe it or
that
not.
moratorium inside that 6 months if we decide to.
Just repeal it
Yeah.
inside of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And meet back in September from what we gathered, and then take a vote on it. This is a great way to supplement the tax increase that we're looking for.
Yeah, can we just mark that to have a discussion in September, and if we can lift it then, we can lift it then?
I was just going to make a point of clarification. It's my understanding that the part of the legislation that would allow municipalities to keep tax revenues from marijuana sales was not part of the final bill, but that's something that we would have to check.
That's right.
So the only way we would get money back from that is if we had increased revenue sharing that would allow the sales tax money to be returned to us.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
You are correct in what you're surmising. However, in talking with the legislature as late as 5 o'clock this afternoon, that could change when they meet on Monday to veto Governor LePage's bills that he has.
Okay.
So it is possible that the city of Waterville could generate some, either 5%, whatever, from the sale of marijuana medically. I don't think recreational, that's a different ballgame.
Okay. Thanks
Okay.
for the clarification.
Okay. No further discussion. We'll take a vote. This is an ordinance. Can I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Sol?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayhew?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Dupont?
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next is Order 112-2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Next is Order 113-2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An order providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt. I'm
Second.
sorry, the two orders, weren't they roll calls?
Yeah, you're right.
So,
I guess we need a roll call on 112-2018.
Counselor Sol?
Yes.
Counselor White?
yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayhew?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Dupont?
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
And can I get a roll call on Order 113-2018?
Counselor Sol?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayhew?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Dupont?
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
And if anybody's wondering, this is almost $9,000 in forfeited money, as well as a Glock 22 handgun and an extra $1,400. I know sometimes we just breeze through these votes. It's nice just to let you know we're voting on. Next is Ordinance 114-2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
An ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, is there any update on this?
No change from last meeting.
Okay. Michael?
Well,
No.
an agreement's been reached to erect some kind of fence, and when it goes back to the planning board, right, that's gonna be handled at that time.
Okay. Can I get a roll call?
Driscoll?
Yes.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Lessing?
Yes.
Counselor Mayu?
Yes.
Counselor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Counselor Tate?
Yes.
Counselor Dupont?
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
New business, Resolution 116, 2018. Did we just take a sec? Thank you.
A resolution providing for override of the mayor's veto. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Waterville, acting as municipal officers as follows. That the mayor's veto of the approved budget for the 2018 to 2019 be overridden.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, so this is budget discussion, and we will go to the council first for any comments or discussion, and then we will open it up to members of the public who would like to come to the podium and have a few minutes to let us know your thoughts and comments. And Councilor Mayhew, I know you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, some thoughts on the budget that we're looking at now. This is, again, reiterate, this is the most important vote of our tenure on an annual basis as city councilors for our constituents in all of our wards. I recently went out on conscience after the mayor vetoed. I had a private one-on-one with the mayor concerning his veto, concerning his proposals. In my inner chamber of myself, I had to go out on various streets within my ward, and I conducted my own personal poll of where my constituents lie, and obviously I accumulated emails, phone calls, various other things that I took into consideration in making my vote. I want to share my thoughts where I think our municipal budgets seem to have a pitched battle, like a civil war, in my opinion, every single year. And from the talk on the streets, and from the conversations that I have at doors and on steps, in living rooms and in kitchens, is the ideological war that we have where it pitches support for public schools versus the tax mill rate. It seems to be the sentiment of everybody in some sense of reality in the city of Waterville that this is where the pitched battle is being waged. I'm a graduate of Waterville Senior High School. My daughter, 27 years old, is a graduate of Waterville Senior High School. I have a stake in the Waterville public school system. I want to first and foremost say that I am a supporter of Waterville public schools. And I have great sentiment there. I have a lot of friends, especially retired teachers within my own district, and present-day teachers, teachers in my own family. So I have a great stake. I'm a fiscal conservative by nature. You know, I'm all about holding the line on budgets and reining in money, finding the most innovative and creative ways to save money. At the same time, I know that the schools are under great attack from every level, national, state, not necessarily from a municipal stance, because we are limited in all kinds of scopes and nature of what we get from money overall. It's like you're turning on your faucet outside or hooking up your garden hose, and you discover that your water pressure isn't very good, because your water pressure has been limited by forces from outside that cause you can't even water your garden because there's just a trickle coming out. I can certainly relate to people's concerns about this ideological war with public schools and the tax mill rate. They go hand in hand together in a lot of different ways. I helped this city council during the course of the mayor's recall process and him being mired in the muck of having to deal that from a personal level, from a professional level. And I helped my city councils come to the budget that they're faced with today. You know, at an 8.3% increase, we started at 3.14. We got it down to 2.23. We brought it down to 1.95. And we are close to a bare bones budget in the sense where we don't cut major personnel and offset things. Now, there are some things that I'd like to see change, and there's some things that I have to propose. Out of the 50 homes that I visited, 49 of the 50 homes, as I said before in council meetings, it's all about minimizing the tax increase. They understand that there's going to be a tax increase. They understand that there's no way out of it. They also understand it's not fiscally reasonable to bring the taxes down to 3%. All I'm asking, and I know that several others are asking, is we minimize the tax increase. We bring it down some more. I believe in another review of the budget. And I know and I have respect for every single counselor on here because I helped them with this budget and to come to the numbers, and I don't have any ill will towards how my counselors vote, but I do want to plead for their sense of purpose, the center of their sphere with their constituents, because I know 49 out of 50 that want a tax mill rate to be reduced and still want a public education is real, not only in my ward, but I believe in several other wards. I am publicly in support of the teachers' contract. I do believe there should be more transparency on the side of the school and giving communication to the council as far as those contract negotiations and where the percentages lie. I think there has to be more transparency on that end. I do believe that we need to have teachers that are in competitive pay rates to surrounding communities, because we have lost, in my conversation with teachers on doorsteps and inside kitchens, we have lost some teachers because of this, and we have heard this at budget workshops. Out of 12 people that were proposed by the school to hire, they whittled it down to 6. And these are, some of them are federally mandated and critical to the school system as a whole. I think it is a worthy investment. At the same time, I plead for the school system to be open and more transparent with the numbers, as far as, especially with the teachers' union contracts, so that we can have a better sense of what we're looking at from a year-to-year basis. But I do want to publicly let everybody know, including my teachers, retired teachers, and faculty that live within my ward, that I am vocally supportive of Waterville Public Schools. And I've had talks with several people in my ward concerning this. I do think there is enough money to have a small cut and possible amendment to this budget of $100,000 on each side. And it doesn't have to touch the pool money, doesn't have to touch that designated restricted fund. We can use the rest of our PERF money. And we can ask the schools that made, according to the budget workshops that I had, and I refer to Sandra Sullivan's email to the council, which was very articulate. Sandra, I want to compliment you on your email and your listening skills and your empathy for your fellow people in your district and all over the city, because I think you have a great passion for the city. And for you to be at every budget workshop, and your passion just exonerates and comes forth in such a pleasant manner. But to some of the things with her listening skills, and I, reading her email line by line, I recollect a lot of the things in there that are very true. In the discussions during the time where we had the school board and Eric Haley, they had a good fiscal year. They made $60,000 more in revenue. They had less expenditures. It was a fiscally good year for the Waterville Public School System. I don't think out of a $24 million budget that we can't find $100,000 if we match their $100,000 for another significant goodwill gesture cut to this budget. Is it? It's a meaningful. I think it would have meaning to the city. I think it would help generate a good sense of purpose of where we need to go, and at the same time, I do commend the councils for where they are and where we're at now, because I had a play and voted for this budget twice, because I felt like we were at a state where we couldn't go anywhere unless we do cut personnel and we do cut services. That's going to be a greater talk, and I think we have to have public forums, which I've described in talks with counselors, that, you know, we have to make decisions, some hard core decisions. I believe we should have a dry run budget for next year, starting in August. I think we should authorize the city manager and the finance director to start going to work on running a dry run budget to see what we're looking at next year. I've even heard talks about capping the mill rate at a certain level to go with the course of inflation. We have to make some hard decisions going down the road because of where we're at. And I know and I've had people in their kitchens and living rooms, they say, sit down, Sid, I want to show you what my tax bill looks like. I want to show you how much I pay a month in just Waterville property taxes. Senior citizens, fixed income people, blue collar workers that work from paycheck to paycheck. I'm one of them. You know, I pay my bills on a weekly basis. I save on a daily basis. I go without some things, and once in a while I splurge, but the splurging is starting to be really limited. The reality is coming to the floor where everybody is struggling. And I know that there are people in far worse situations than I am, and I feel really blessed to be where I am and working hard along with several others. But we have to take the empathy that we have for the taxpayers are the CEOs of our representation here. They really are. I've said this before, I'll say it again. They are the governing factors of this body, not us. We have an allegiance and we have a responsibility to meet both demands, to have good functioning public schools and to have a tax mill rate that we are constantly and everlastingly trying to limit. It's going to take innovation, it's going to take creativity, it's going to take a lot of thought, and it's going to take a lot of expertise. If we have to get outside sources to help us, I suggest that we do so. But I want to let everybody know, this is the reason why I choose not to override the mayor's veto. I do disagree with some of his proposals, and I want to make and reiterate this is to override the mayor's veto is not about his proposals. He has proposals, he has convictions of his own. This is, if you vote not to override the mayor's veto, it's simply asking that we look at the budget again. And I want to nip that right in the bud. It's just a simple sign that we want to go back and see if there is anything, an acknowledgement that we may have missed something or maybe we can find something. I know that we were very careful line by line and we did a lot of work, and I'm not going to subjugate or devalue what we have already done. And I want to let all my councils know that I'm not doing that. I do want to say that, though I am in favor, if anybody feels like U.S. Senator Susan Collins, I certainly feel like her today. You know, I want to say that, you know, I feel like I am doing justice for both sides of the aisle in my ward. And a small cut that is harmless, that doesn't jeopardize teacher union contracts, that doesn't touch the 6 new hires for the school, which I am supportive of, and having a matching cut on our side is the way to go. Thank you very much.
Having a what?
Matching cut. I have a couple things to say. I do not have a big long speech. I'm going to try to keep it brief because you guys have sat here really patiently and wonderfully through the night, and I know probably some of you have things you want to say too. You know, the job of mayor is to understand that we have a community, as we've seen here tonight with the pool slide, where there's a lot of people who really want the pool slide. There's other people who really question our ability to do that. It's my job to be able to lay out suggestions and commentary that people think we're not supposed to be able to say. Nobody that I know thinks that the city budget is bloated and has all kinds of things that we can cut. I don't know anybody that thinks that our teachers are overpaid. However, it is my job to balance when I go into homes and speak to the woman I spoke to on the South End who lives alone. Her husband passed away a few years ago. She's having trouble going up and down the stairs. She'd love to put a new bathroom in downstairs, but she's going to hold off on that because she's worried about how that affects her taxes. These are all things I have to take into consideration. So to me, I have to say, and I'm okay saying, it's okay to have a conversation of whether 6% is okay for raises. Now, I will tell you, Eric, when I suggested that, in other municipalities, like in RSU 18 a couple of years ago, the voters there vote on their budget. They voted down the school budget twice, and there was a clause in their contract that's because that money hadn't been allocated, so I didn't realize our contracts were written differently than that. That it does make me question why the council even gets to vote on it if there's no ability for them to actually change it. But we've had a conversation tonight about a pool and a pool slide. Guys, look at the state budget. I would love to have revenue sharing come back. I know I've been to Augusta, Councilor McDonald's been to Augusta, Councilor Tate's been to Augusta, other people may have. If I've missed you, I'm sorry. But the reality is the state budget has grown by over $1 billion since 2010. We've had revenue sharing cut by a Democrat governor, by a Republican governor. We've had revenue sharing not restored by a Democrat-controlled House and a Republican-controlled Senate. Where's the money gone? Well, we've had tens of millions of dollars more in welfare for non-citizens. We had the cooked-up scheme of new market tax credits, where there was a massive tax credit giveaway to out-of-state bankers, essentially, that closed a mill in Millinocket. The legislature, the chances of that money coming back, probably not great. And so there is a reality that we have to look in. Personally, I would prefer a local option taxation on things like marijuana, perhaps meals and lodging taxes. I don't have all the answers, but these are conversations hopefully we can have with whoever's elected in Augusta. But we hopefully over this next year, there is an earlier start to the budget so we can look so that we're not voting for 12 months on equipment and ideas when we don't know, then next spring we're in this situation that we know is going to be tough. I'm concerned we're building a river walk. It's great, it's probably going to make the land more valuable. Am I concerned that 10 years from now we're going to still have crumbling sidewalks and then that's going to look the same way and then we're going to be having the same debate about how many people in public works it's going to take to fix all this stuff? Yeah, I am. So whether it's the pool, whether it's the roads, whether it's the river walk, we have to have a real hard discussion about where these priorities are. And however this vote goes, I will say after this, I'm hoping to host some public meetings to have a strategic plan because the community needs to come together and say, what are the priorities for the next year? So when things happen throughout the year, we can go back and say, how does that really fit into this plan? I think this budget can be lowered. I've had discussions with various counselors. I'm not going to be too redundant. I already talked longer than I said I would, so I'm sorry. And I will now open it to any other counselors and then we'll go to the public.
I just, I find it ironic that 2-3 weeks ago we all sat here, all 7 of us, and we unanimously approved the budget, and we all were in agreement that this budget was down to its bare bones. Are there cuts? I'm sure there could be cuts at what expense? Maybe this winter we can't buy sand because we can't afford it if we cut some more, so we can't sand the roads. I don't know. I mean, we pull more money from the fire department, which was brought up in an article. I mean, they're already hurting it, with their training budget, at what expense are we going to keep cutting? And is it kicking the can down the road? It could be, if we keep cutting in different areas, other places are going to lack, and we're going to see it later on. We take $100,000 from the PERC money that's left over. We have nothing for next year now. So, I mean, it's really ironic that we're here and, we approved it, it got vetoed, and now we're not all in agreement. But, so.
We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem.
That's right.
We're actually spending less as a city on our side of the budget than we did last year, folks. The governor, however, has seen fit to deny us $1.4 million in revenue sharing every year, and though he put $190 million into a savings account, a rainy day fund for the state. So folks, if we had even half of that $1.4 million we wouldn't be here. We would have no budget increase. But folks, the governor has forced us to raise taxes so we can make ends meet. Again, we've said bare bones how many times over the last 3 months? We're not raising expenses, folks. We're making it smaller than last year. Not very, very much, but it's actually small.
Point of clarification, last year, roughly $700,000 was spent on $700,000 of one-time purchases. So the normalized spending actually is up. I understand a lot of that is on salary and benefits, but it's just a point of clarification. And I do just want to clarify too, it's not just the governor, guys. The legislature's appropriating $1 billion more than they were just a few years ago. The money hasn't come back here, so it's an Augusta problem, not just a governor problem.
Can I just say too that some of the things that some people ask us to do and they say that we're not listening when we don't do it, we just can't do anything about. Like, you know, if your anthem, if you're told that your anthem is going up 11% this year, you can't call them and negotiate that. That's not something, you know, like some people are telling us, well, we should ask them, you know, like give us a better price. We can't, you know, like how many of you call your own insurance company to get a better deal? I mean, on your health insurance, you can't do that.
Everybody, that's right.
Everybody does that. Okay, buddy. And then, like, the hydrants are costing more. You know, the sewers are costing more, and that's all happened since we started the budget process. I mean, we cannot go back and in people that have been given contracts and ask them to not take their contract. You just can't do that. I mean, if somebody did that to you, I'm sure you would not just say, sure, I accept that. When Sidney says that he goes around to his ward, we all do that. And trust me, I've never had anyone say to me, Steve, you know, I really hope my taxes go up. No one says that, you know. They don't want that to happen, but they do know that there's a chance that it could, to not lose the services. Like if they have a choice that their taxes might go up 1.9 mils, or we could have a volunteer fire department, which would cost you more for car insurance than what you would save for taxes. Is that a good deal for you? So we have done everything we can. I mean, Sidney a couple weeks ago said it was a bare bones budget. He said it again tonight, it's a bare bones budget. We really can't find any more places to save.
And I would just add that, just to play off something that you said, Mayor, about welfare for non-citizens, I really don't want to see immigrants targeted as the reason for our local budget
Oh my God.
woes.
I gave a list of things the legislature's spending money on that was included.
I needed to say that we're watching human tragedy unfold on the border right now. And
Well, I'm just going to be honest about. Listen, I also gave the example of the new market tax credits. I'm being honest about the fact that the legislature is finding other ways and places to spend money rather than revenue sharing. Thank you. Yes, Councilor.
I would like to address some of Sidney's comments. I appreciate the work that he's put into the budget, and I want him to be assured, as I communicated to you.
Speak up, please.
Sorry. That we have gone back to the budget. I met with the mayor, going over these proposals. The proposal that if I understand correctly, that is on the table is to take additional money from the surplus, which I think is indicative of the long-term planning crisis that we have. We just had a conversation tonight where people came up and said over and over again, we need to plan for the future, we need to set money aside, we need to have this surplus, we need to anticipate what the budget issues are going to be. And then we come to this discussion, and the proposal is take more money out of the surplus, more money out of the savings, and put it into the budget for this year. I agree that there needs to be a long-term plan. We are working together. We are thinking about it. And what the budget is going to look like next year is possibly making a volunteer fire department. That would save a mill rate. Creating a fire district. That would put the burden on individual homes to pay directly for fire services.
And nonprofits.
And nonprofits, which could be something that would be exciting to explore for many people, including myself. The ways in which, I mean, these conversations are happening. We are thinking long-term, And the fact is that for going into the budget for next year, we are looking at shutting down departments in the city if we do not commit to investments. So I think the mayor's suggestion of public meetings where we decide collectively what the priorities are have to happen. I look forward to them in the coming months and year. But I would like to reiterate what has been said already, which is that we have worked together to create this budget that was passed twice unanimously. And I believe that the proposals on the table are not realistic in terms of further cuts at this time.
I'm going to open it up and allow the public. We'll ask you to keep it roughly within 3 minutes. Just let us know who you are and where you live, sir.
I'm Dick Thomas, and I live in Ward 3. I'm a psychologist at the Seton Center in town. I've also studied a lot of social psychology, and there are some ideas there about how to make groups, even like this group, function more successfully. I'd just like to mention a couple of them. So, one thing that's clear is that we've become very divided, and tensions are higher. Some of us feel threatened or angry, and the problem with that is that when people feel threatened, we don't do our best thinking. We get into the fight or flight response, adrenaline's pumping, the thinking part of the brain actually shuts down, and the emotions take over. Now, that makes it hard to deal with a complicated problem. And our budget deficit is a real complicated problem. So there's two sides here, and neither side is wrong. Each side is simply pointing to a different truth. So one truth is that if the taxes go up too high, that's going to be a hardship on people who are on fixed budgets or limited budgets. And the other truth is that if we don't come up with a budget that works, our children's education is going to suffer, and all of us who receive services from the town, we're going to lose out too. So we can approach this either in a win-win or a win-lose fashion. Now, the win-lose fashion is that my group tries to win, protect my constituents. The other constituents can bear the burden. So there's a problem because half of the people feel unfairly treated. And maybe next time I have an issue that I want to pass, those people who I have betrayed are not going to make it easy for me. In the long run, everybody loses if we approach this in a win-lose fashion. So the win-win fashion is that everybody listens. So I have to really listen to the other side and realize there's nothing wrong with what they're saying. It's a different truth, and it's just as important as mine. And we have to consider everybody in town. Now, so we've got a problem here, and it's not caused by anybody here. It's caused by the state with withholding its revenue sharing. It's normal to be angry about that, and this can be productive if the anger just gives us enough push to talk to our representatives in Augusta. And if you talk to Bruce White, please be kind. But we need to have enough energy to speak up and say, this issue is really bad for Waterville. We have a lot of people here and a small tax base. So this is worse for us than it is for the rich towns in southern Maine or Blue Hill. Now, here's another challenge. How can we really listen to the other side and work for common goals if we really already feel betrayed, done wrong by other people here? And one important step is to look at our assumptions about the other group. When groups are in conflict, we tend to assume the worst about the others. We assume their intention is to hurt us. We might assume that they're just really misinformed, or they're not smart enough to understand, or even that they're bad. But I think the truth is, everybody is here with good intentions. We're all here because we want Waterville to go in a good direction. And especially people who are willing to work on the council or as mayor, they're really doing a service to all of us. Every one of them Well, I feel grateful because you're doing something under stressful conditions that I don't think I could tolerate.
You're
I'm
very
just
calming when you talk.
Oh.
I have to say, you live in Ward 3, so you might
Yeah.
want to think about it.
I am going to ask you not to judge my intentions.
Oh.
I am going to ask you to wrap it up. But
Yeah.
normally we have a little beeper that goes off.
Okay.
And I know Sydney kind of set the example here that we're all trying to beat. But Mike's giving me the wrap up.
Oh, okay.
But you can, if you can
Yeah.
nutshell this,
Yeah, just-
you don't need to run away real quick.
So now if we can think about that, maybe the people that we disagree with have intentions just as positive as our own. Maybe we can feel not threatened so that we can think twice when we're angry and hold back on saying things that would threaten the other side, and we can really unite again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brad Sherwood, Ward 5, and thank you, Dick, and for the comments. Dick's a great guy. I know him. I want to, and I'm glad he said that because it's similar to what I want to say and what John O'Donnell said, and that is we wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't be having these feelings towards other people if it wasn't for the 2010 and 2011 tax cuts for the wealthiest Mainers. What you're looking at now, let's say you had a good job, and you decide, I don't need that job, I'm going to quit, I'm going to have a part-time job. And as your income dwindles over time, you come to a point where you either got to start throwing things out, stop going to the movies, eat less food, whatever, because you have less money. And the same thing is happening to all our municipalities here in Maine because of this great massive tax cut that was given to the wealthiest. If you want to be angry at somebody, not people within your community, be angry at the leaders that did that to us. Be upset with them because they're the ones that forced austerity upon us. So here we are. You have to choose. Are we going to be a city with fewer and fewer services because of the austerity that's been pushed on us, or are we going to be good stewards of what we have? Are we going to take care of the needs that are here, or are we only going to be concerned about how big our tax bill is? Because at some point, you do have to invest. At some point, you do have to maintain. And yes, if your roof is leaking, you might want to go fix it. That's more important than, let's say, a hole in the window. But the farmers and the frontiers people, when they came out, they built a small structure and they put their money into what's productive. And we have to invest in the towns. We have to invest in our departments because otherwise we're going to find it much more expensive 10 years from now if we don't put some money up now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Libby, Ward 4. I hear excuses. That's what I'm hearing. I hear a lot of excuses about why we can't do this or do that because we're going to have to make some difficult cuts. That's what we elected you to do at this point. That's part of your job. That's why you're here. Maybe we didn't elect the right people to make tough choices before, but that's on us. Now it's on you. That's what you're going to have to do now. If I get at the end of the year, I'm lucky. I got a 3% increase from my job last year. But if the increase doesn't match the town, how do I afford to be able to stay here? It doesn't make sense. You know, I don't want to see people lose their jobs. That changes lifestyles. It means people are going to have to leave this town. I understand that. But if we continue to raise taxes, people are going to leave this town and we have a whole new problem. But that's what I hear. I hear excuses. You know, when Fairpoint Communications came in, they promised a lot of different things and they spent a lot of money and they couldn't afford what they had. And they had to cut back and ultimately they filed for bankruptcy and they had to sell again. Because they said, well, that's the way they did it before. That's how they did it when Verizon owned it. That's the way they did it. And they didn't make changes. We need to make tough changes. You know, if my wife loses her job, I don't hear excuses about the governor. If my wife loses her job and I don't have that income, I have to start budgeting differently immediately. I don't know when that income's going to come back into my house. I have to make a change immediately. I bet I could get some mothers and fathers in here with children who, you know, who could come up with a budget pretty quickly because when they don't have the money, they don't spend the money. And they have to say, you know what, instead of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, maybe you just have a jelly sandwich. Or maybe sometimes you don't exactly have all of the good things that you want, but you tighten the belt and you get through it so you can move forward and put yourself in a position to be successful in the future. And we're asking you to do that now. I hope that you'll listen to us
for once.
Waterville, Ward 7. I want to commend Councilor Mayu for his stance. I disagree with Councilor Sol, though. He uses the reference when Anthem goes up 11%. I shop around. I don't adhere to that 11%. I shop around. Councilor White stated, and I don't know, I wish Mike was here, does the city buy sand? The city buys sand.
Yes.
Has anybody asked, why can't we get our own? Or maybe ask a contractor if he can give us a deal? I mean, the Kennebec River goes all the way down to Augusta. When I travel Route 201 in Winslow, and all I see is dirt. There's gravel pits. Why can't we ask one of our neighbors to help us out? That's what I'm talking about, bond raising. Why should we buy stuff from Massachusetts or wherever when we have it in our own backyard? It's stupid. Shop around. Bid it out. But also ask the local people first.
Good evening. Tom McNeil from Ward 7. I've been there for about 25 years. I'll try to be really brief, so I wrote it down, so I can't get off task. I've been fortunate to be in schools for about 25 years in 3 different school systems. I was fortunate to be here in Waterville for 3 years after having been other places. I left Waterville for one primary reason, is that I realized I couldn't be a good dad and a good school counselor in the same school. So my children go to school here in Waterville, which I'm very pleased for, and I work elsewhere. What I can tell you about my experience, though, is that when I came to Waterville to be closer to home, I took about a 10% pay cut. And then 3 years later, when I left, and it wasn't about the money, fortunately, at that point, because this is a great city and we're very fortunate, it was the right thing for my family, I had about a 10% pay increase. Mm-hmm. So the part about us trying to, in tough times, you know, have that teacher contract, it's to try to keep us competitive. One of my roles as a school counselor is trying to build schedules for kids. And right now, we need to get teachers hired so we can get things established. And each week that passes, other districts are snagging the smaller pool that we have. So timing is an important factor to keep in mind. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that some of the positions that were listed for the Waterville Public Schools, well, actually, I'm going to back up for a quick second. I think that we can all, I know everybody in this room wants the best thing for Waterville. Everybody wants the best thing. How we get there is different, but we all want the same best thing. The state is, we're the oldest state in the country. Been going to trainings, hearing from economists, and the economists are telling us that we need every single student to graduate from high school. We need them to have good skills. We need to help them to get good training and stay in our communities and make this work and stay in our state. It's essential. We don't have the luxury of letting some students fall by the roadside, because it's going to hurt us in the long run as a state. Some of the positions like social worker, obviously it's work with school counselors all the time. There's a lot of families, a lot of kids. It's very tough times, it's very stressful. What is that there for? To keep kids in school, to improve attendance, to get them their learning, to help them to stay, to persevere. Our students at the alternative school, we need to hire a science teacher for them to get good quality science education. And we need to do that soon. Again, it's about keeping these kids in school and getting them to graduate. It is tough times. It certainly is, and I recognize that. And I thank you all for your service. And I know we got tough decisions to make. That's just the way it is. It is essential to our future of our town, of our city rather, and of our state that we invest in these kids. And the sooner we get invested and move forward, the sooner we get the right people hired and the more that we can move on. Last comment, one of the things that was mentioned about the tax cuts, when those, came to be for income tax, one of the things, at least just speaking personally, I realized that our communities, our municipalities, were going to probably bear more burden because the state was going to have fewer resources to be able to share with us. So I when I got my increase, I knew that it was probably going to go towards my property tax, and unfortunately it has. And I guess maybe I was just lucky that I was able to set that part aside, and I know not everyone is that fortunate. But I just want you to know our kids need this budget. We need to get to market really fast to hire good people for the city. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Evans, Ward 6. I'm also an employee of the schools, Waterville Schools. I'm not sure, I appreciate the first two votes, the council coming together. I appreciate Mr. Mayhew trying to tweak it further. I'm not quite, I understand the thought process behind Eric being more transparent, the schools being more transparent. I think his budget, I know Julian's gone over it with a fine red pen, and so I don't understand that piece of it. But I haven't heard the word civics. And when I first moved here, 9 months pregnant, almost 18 years ago, didn't know anybody, was with my husband, didn't know anybody, and didn't work for 5 years, had children. We had taxes. We struggled. It was right around 9/11 when insurance went up and blah, 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 and we thought we could live on one paycheck, my husband's. We struggled, but it was our civic duty to pay taxes. And I came from out of town, out of the state, and grew up in a town where public school was very important in the community, and their taxes were very high because of it, and the other services that were provided. It's still that way where I lived. I feel that I paid taxes for the school children, for trash pickup, blah, 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 those first 5, 6 years that my children were not in the school. Now, I'm expecting the people whose children I did help, who are no longer having children attend the public schools, that it's their civic duty to give in. I am not disparaging the older citizens in our city. I don't know what that's like, so I can't speak from experience. I'm not there yet, but I do not discredit their fears at all. Having said that, I don't have the answer. I wish, I know you and I spoke a year ago last summer, and I came into your office and I said, what is the plan? What is the vision? Colby was starting to come in. What is the vision? And so I'm going to stay on a positive side. I'm glad that we're going to have some forums, because that we need to have them. We need to have a discussion. How is everything going to fit into place? I do think, I'm going to wrap this up, I do think that I'm hopeful that things are going to get better, but it's hard when we know we need pool renovations, hiring teachers for the school. We do not want to have a volunteer fire service. We need people to move in. So I'll just say that, and I'm hopeful that, I'm sorry, Nick, that they overturn the veto.
That's all right.
Thank you.
And I don't want to necessarily speak on behalf of Sid, but I know him well enough to say I think what he really meant was that we could probably have better communication between the city and the school prior to budgeting, because we actually don't talk a lot, and then it comes to budget time and we're finding out a lot of bombs that are being set off, I guess. Sorry to speak up, but I know you well enough that yes, we know what you meant. Hey, Phil.
Phil Bofill, Ward 2. If anything came out of this meeting, it's that we need to plan better. It is crystal clear. And we need to have not only a 1-year plan, but a 2 or 3 year plan. Mm-hmm. We need to look ahead and make sure that we can afford the things we spent. Right now it's pretty clear that the city council has done everything they could and got to a point where the budget is what it is. You voted, everybody voted on it. If there's something else that can be done, maybe we'll take a look at it, but it looks like there possibly isn't. And we are all in this together. You know, taking care of our community is not one person's job. Being fiscally responsible is not one person's job. You know, taking care of our community is not one person's job. It's all our jobs. When the roads are good, we all benefit. When the children go and slide and have a good time, we all benefit from it. So we have to work together to make sure that, you know, we all together, you know, come up with creative ideas, you know, local contractors, you know, letting the people know what's happening. Letting them know if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen, because people are concerned about this year. If you listen to everything that's been happening, somebody has to be talking about next year, okay? Because we have spent pretty much all our money, and know that we're looking at more tax increases. And if you don't do anything, next year it's going to be worse. Right? And 2 years from now, it might be even worse. So it is time to start looking ahead. 2 years from now, how do we plan? How do we budget? What do we do? And let the people know, because we all want to help. You know, like families, if you're struggling, if you go see, you know, auntie, she will help you, right? Nana will help. Everybody pitch in. If we let the people know, instead of having those divisive fight and always pointing fingers at others, and then it's your fault, it's your fault. Instead of coming together and say, this is our city, those are the problems we have. How can we come together to fix it? And I hope we do that going forward. Thank you.
Rian Finch, Ward 6. So despite increased spending by the state, and for a point of clarification, the only non-citizens who don't pay taxes and qualify for aid are asylum seekers who are legally prohibited from working. Aside from that, and despite whatever increased spending that might have brought, the state is ending the year with estimated $141 million surplus. They have to finalize it on Monday, I believe, when they override or don't override a ton of vetoes. Vetoing is what gets into why we don't have revenue sharing. I believe while we've had Democratic majorities that have fought for and proposed revenue sharing for the past however many years, Pat LePage, I can't go back right now and do the math, 8 years, 7 years, he has vetoed every attempt to restore revenue sharing, and that the current Democratic candidate for governor has said that if revenue sharing is put before her while she's governor, she will sign it. And listen, $141 million, one of the reasons that Waterville became a service center was with the understanding that with the increased business that this brought to the state, we would get a share of that back. That's what revenue sharing is. That's what our TIFs are for. That's what being a service center, enticing businesses, giving tax cuts, is all because of the revenue that it brings to the state. So in terms of asking neighbors and asking other communities and asking for help, I'd like to go to the state and ask for our money back.
Right.
Thank you.
Great.
Anthony George, Ward 6. Tomorrow we celebrate Independence Day. One thing that's great about it is all of us have the right to address the government. I know there was a big long talk about the pool. So what? Who cares? We went a little bit longer. But we have the right to address any kind of grievance to you guys. You guys are public servants. You work for us. It's not the other way around. And I want to call out Councilor White. There was a couple of people who wanted to talk. Maybe you didn't want to hear what they had to say. They didn't agree. They didn't connect your dots. But they have the right to speak to you guys. And for you to call a vote before everyone got to speak was very wrong and un-American.
Hi, Sarah Tadeo, Ward 4. I also moved here about 19 years ago, have had 3 kids in the public schools. I've been volunteering in them since I arrived, and I really recommend to everybody that they might want to consider stepping into the schools and seeing how they function before you make criticism. 4 years ago, I started attending all of the Board of Education meetings, which are completely open to the public. I encourage you to do that as well. They are quite transparent, but very few people show up. It's usually just me and the board. Very cozy. I have learned a lot. I have been able to read all of the budgets, and I really want to commend them for the hard work they have done. They are squeezing out cents from every dollar to try and make the budget work for the kids. These kids are the future of our town. They are what we will all be relying on in the future. If they are not well educated, if they're not well taken care of, we're all going to suffer. It is not easy. I don't want to pit the old against the young. It's not a zero-sum game, as was well said. But if we don't support the schools, who's going to want to come and move here? We moved here for these schools. We could have lived in any town in the area. We moved here for the schools. And I think many other people will do the same who are young and old, who want to have good services and a good quality of life. If you cut the schools like they did with Proposition 13, you will lose all of what you have gained, all of the things that make your town worth living in. And that's a very sad thing to contemplate. So I hope you will continue to support the budget. Thank you.
Julian Payne, Ward 5. I'd like to thank residents in my ward, like Sandy, that were very involved with the budget. And I actually took the budget book home to home and said, help me, what do you think? You know, is this a good move? Help me cut. And as far as the transparency, Sandy wrote a letter about $200,000 that went to council and me. And I was on the phone with Eric that morning saying, what's up with this $200,000? And you got your answer right. You ascertained that it was a reduction rather than a cut in the wording, similar to that.
The answer was, it was vernacular.
Right.
It was, in other words, the way the question was put. We don't make cuts, we just shuffle money around so people can't follow it.
Okay. Well, we tried to be transparent that way.
That's not transparency, that's shuffling.
Okay. Yeah. So, but we were able to give you the answer, and you were able to draw a conclusion from that answer. And we'd always love to have you back, and you know that. I'll stop by, and I'll always talk to Eric with any questions that you have. So, the concern I have really on the dry run budget is something you really need to look at. Because if you take next year's budget, the schools get a mill, presumably you guys get a mill, there's no perk fund, virtually no savings fund. The schools will get less revenues next year. You're possibly looking to borrow and bond. That could be a $5 million increase. That's 20%. So I think as a council, to sit down now and say, what is the maximum increase that we can endure as a community? Because at $5 million, 20%, there's going to be a lot of people in this room speaking on Sydney Mayhew's side. And we want this to be looked at, so there is money for the schools, because $5 million increase is just whopping. And really that, if you look at that, and even Mike's alluded, next year is going to be very tough. We're in big, big trouble next year, and that's something that needs to be addressed this summer with a budget book in front of them. And
You too on the school board.
exactly. I would hope this summer with Eric to sit down and the board and say, what's the maximum percent that we could really go up in 1 year? Thanks for pointing that out. That is a conversation, that as a board we should try and look at a target percentage, so that because this year really doesn't seem like the tip of the iceberg when I'm looking at the numbers for next year on the city side and all the sides. And that would be a real high mill rate increase for people. And as far as Mr. Soul, you're correct, there's baked in items like healthcare and insurance that can't be tampered with. And that's why I looked at things like pool and river walks, because you've just approved $750,000 for a slide, when we're one of the only communities in the entire state that has that. So while you can't cut healthcare and other items, I agree. But that's why I was looking at those items. That's what we look at in the school budget, things like new lockers or, hinges and paint. So, yes, it's a luxury, the kids do need it, but you're paying for it. So when you say that you haven't really hit rock bottom on that, that's really not the crux of it. There's $350,000 for a slide. So I really urge you to look for next year's budget. Thank you.
Kathy Weeks, Ward 1. I'm bringing the concern about an increase in the property tax. I wished all 7 councilors had been in my neighborhood to watch a family that lived there for 40 years, and they had to move because they said, we just cannot endure another property tax. I know 3 couples are moving into the area. They're buying in surrounding communities because of the property taxes. I agree with Councilor Mayu that this needs to be looked at again. An outside consultant needs to be brought in to sit down and go over it again. One good example, I was here when we had the recycling debate and buying the recycling truck. There were 2 other options that the audience asked about. One was leasing, and the other one, somebody brought forth, there were 2 trucks in the state of Florida under 50,000 miles that we could have purchased for half of the price that the recycling truck we now have. And I understand from an article that I read in the paper that this truck is so small, multiple trips have to be made to Norwich Walk. Again, the theme all during the night is we're not thinking things out, we're not looking ahead. Our mayor, even though it is not his job as director of budget, is trying to bring us on track along with Councilor Mayu. Councilor Mayu, in your ward, there is one family, if this particular tax increase goes through, it's going to be nearly $600 more that they just cannot afford. You see the for sale signs on every street in Waterville, and the reason is the taxes. So I really hope the council will take this very logical item that Councilor Mayu is asking for to, let's bring somebody else in, because we're not making the mark with who we have looking at the budget. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mary Ann Bernier again, Ward 4 school board member. And I think in the school board, we could go back and look at the budget again. But I think we can save all the teachers' positions that we have there and the new ones we've put in. The elderly just can't afford it. In my ward, the same thing said. I know what you're talking about, absolutely. But they always say they can't afford the taxes, absolutely. But they've always said the kids get the education they deserve. So we can keep the teaching positions, but we got to go back and look. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We got to be last up, Steve O'Coin, Ward 2. Michael, how much would it cost to send a bill to every single tax-exempt entity? Not as a bill. This is not a bill. It says right on the top, this is not a bill. But how much? Who would have the courage to even do that? I mean, people, you don't want to address that issue.
Actually,
And it has to be addressed, and that could be a way to do it.
Did I mention I don't work at Colby anymore? But so let me.
Well, no, I don't care.
but that's fine. But I want to say that the issue of a fire district that Councilor Tate raised is a really interesting issue.
Well,
and
it
that
isn't.
is one way that you can do
There
that.
was a bill filed 5 years ago,
And
in
even
fact, that
sooner than
failed.
that, because I was there, it was like 3 years ago, there was one too that I went
Yeah,
to.
and it dissolved into a committee that was stacked with tax-exempt entities, and I was part of that committee. And so what happened, they even objected to the idea that they could use their financial privilege to make things the way they want. But I don't know who will have the courage to do that. I don't know what it would cost, Michael, because I know everything has a cost. I understand that. But somewhere, this issue has to be raised. You cannot lose a third of your revenue base in your business, can you, Stan? Sydney.
Absolutely
To go
not.
do it.
It'll probably be cheaper than the flyers handed out at North Street Pool this weekend. I bet we could do it.
$5.
I can do it.
This is a critical issue that just sits there and sits there and sits there, and it's the big elephant in the room, and y'all can blame it all upon, property tax and cut. But at some point, when you cut, the patient starves. I don't want leeches applied to my skin. You know, I mean, this is something that has to be dealt with, and it's not going to be dealt with in Augusta until there is movement from the ground up that makes them pay attention to this. And John, you know this issue, I mean, as part of the Legislative Policy Committee. And so I think it's incumbent upon the administration, the councilors, to make this issue front and center so everyone understands we shouldn't be having to nickel and dime when we're missing a third of our revenue base. That's it.
So Amanda Isgro, Ward 4. I said this when Karen Heck was mayor. It was kind of one of my first council meetings, and it was around the budget. And I said, you know, at some point, we have to face reality, that we are not getting the money from the state. That is the reality. Does it suck? Yes. To put it not eloquently. So we have to, as a city, live within our means, and we have to make priorities. And so if our school is our priority, then yes, we fund our school well. Then we might have to cut, and we might have to move some money that we put at one point in a pool fund to then help with taxes. It's not rocket science. And I'm tired that every time it's like, well, it's the state, it's the state. Well, yeah, you know? I mean, I can say that to my kids. Sorry, it's this, it's this, it's this, but I still have to make the cuts. So I liked what Sydney had to say, that if we can go back and actually just look at the budget, I do think between 7 councilors and a mayor, we can find something else. I do believe we can do that. The sad thing is, I think many of our councilors won't do it because of the recall and because Nick vetoed it. And even tonight, you had to go after him. And even this weekend, you had to create a flyer that was a blatant lie. And to continue this divisiveness is unbelievable. You are an intelligent woman. I do not doubt that. But when I see you doing things like that that only hurt after we have had months of this, it is so disappointing. And I do think that you and our other fellow councilors can go back and look at this and see if there is any other way. And not just say, well, it is what it is. And I don't believe that the schools have to suffer. I'm a little concerned about that we can have a school budget that is created and set on, and the council doesn't have any control over negotiating that. Is that correct? I mean, that's kind of absurd. It's like, why do we even vote on the school budget? So I guess that's all I want to say. But it is about making priorities, because we all have to make priorities. And as a city, we have to make priorities. And yes, hopefully going forward, we will have like a strategic plan like every business does. But our council's members, you need to be involved in that. It is not just the mayor's job to facilitate that. And you know, these past 2 months, you've been so warped and so consumed, at least four council members, of the recall. That's no wonder we haven't found more cuts in the budget, because you were so consumed with that.
They didn't do anything for the recall.
And they signed the petition.
Right.
Some of them were signed petitions.
So what? Order.
Right, but then you don't sit here and make cheap shots. I'm sorry. And you know what? I give you all respect. When you were up here talking, I didn't interrupt you. So don't interrupt me. That's all.
I would like to just respond quickly and say that I don't consider standing up for the rights of immigrants a cheap shot.
Hi, Cindy Jacobs, Ward 4. I fully believe that we should plan more strategically. I think we should look at our budget at the beginning of the year. I happen to know many, many, many towns that pay for a lot of the services that we get for free in Waterville. For example, our sidewalks are plowed by the city. I know many towns that residents are responsible for doing that. Our trash, we pay for our purple bags, but our recycling is picked up for free. I happen to know that recycling has increased greatly since we started using the purple bags. There are a lot of services that we do get in this community that maybe we will have to start paying for. And I know people don't want to hear that, but we get a lot from our town, whether you believe it or not, but that's just some of the things that we do need to look at, because we do have a great town.
I pay Gregory's to come get my trash.
Yeah, I mean, but really, I mean, I think, anyway, there's many, many things like that that I think we can do to help ourselves.
Move the question.
Mayor.
Second.
Yep.
I was just going to ask a question. Respectfully, Mr. Beer, I mean, can he come up another time? Because
Actually, no, if you've already been up on this budget, that was 3 minutes. I have apologies. Looks like we might have one more person. Mr. Smith, closing it out.
I'm Christopher Smith. I'm from Miss Lessing's ward.
My opponent.
Sorry to see you leave.
Yes, thank you.
I am.
Yeah.
I sit in my own neighborhood and I watch as house after house goes up for sale. And it is disheartening. It really is. I talk to my friends who are all young families who are looking to start their own families, raise their kids and buy houses. Not one of them wants to move to Waterville. It's not the people here, it's the taxes. And I'm not saying that you counselors aren't doing your job properly. I honestly believe you all do think that the budget is bare bones. But I do have one question for you. I know, Mr. Mayhew, you've made this very clear in the past. How many of you have ever actually managed people before? I was a store manager for Radio Shack, and I had to make hard decisions when it came to letting people go. And I know none of you want to be the bad people. But when are we going to actually look at it and go, all right, we do have to cut some positions in order to make this community worth livable. It's not an easy one, and it's not one that I am bringing up because I'm cold-hearted. I've got 3 beautiful little children. Miss Lessing's seen them walking around my neighborhood.
Adorable, yeah.
Absolutely adorable. And it breaks my heart when I have to leave them. But it also breaks my heart because I don't want to leave this community. But every time I go on a business trip to Nashville or to Las Vegas or to, I can't even count all the other ones I've gone to. North Carolina, Minnesota, other places. My wife sends me 2 to 3 houses in other communities in other states where the houses are much nicer, much, much nicer. And the taxes are significantly less than I'm paying right now for my current employee. So that's all I've got to say. And I do hope you guys will at least take one more look at it and truly look at it with we need to budget correctly. Thank you.
I just want to say, a couple people have used the sales signs as an indication of flight from taxes, and that might be the case in some cases. I know that property taxes have gone up and year after year, and some people are really hurting, but a lot of that is because the real estate market is booming also. So my house sold in 2.5 weeks. And I know that's not the same all over the city, but there is a certain amount of moving around within the city that's happening also. But thank you.
You've already been up, Julian. We're going to have a vote now, and it is a roll call vote. And just for clarification, since the question is the veto for the approved budget be overridden, I believe a yes vote is to override the veto. a no vote is to sustain the veto and reopen the budget. I know sometimes it's worded a little, I don't want, believe it or not, we've actually had people in the past say, oh, I didn't know what I was voting on, so I just want to make sure everyone's very clear about what they're voting on. So we would take a roll call, please.
Counselor Sol.
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Lessing.
Yes.
Counselor Mayhew.
No.
Counselor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Counselor Page.
Yes.
Counselor DuPont.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you, Sid.
Thank you, Sid.
All right.
Thank you, Sid.
Meeting is not over.
For order we're going to need, we have 2 things scheduled left. One is order 105, 2018, the other resolution 118, 2018. These need to have a vote to be, as well, 118, they're on the back as well. They need to be tabled.
Postpone indefinitely.
Postpone indefinitely.
Make a motion to postpone indefinitely Order 105, 2018, Resolution.
Thank you.
Sorry. Resolution 118, 2018, and Order 118, 2018 to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, we have another approval.
We have one, yeah.
Order 119, 2018.
Move to read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
The forfeiture?
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys did both,
Yeah, we did all.
Yeah.
Did we, Mayor, did we skip one?
No.
105, 218?
I called that when everyone
He
was
put them
talking.
both in for the table.
Nate was very quick. You gotta stay awake. You gotta stick with me. Come on here. I gotta go to
Order
the bathroom.
providing for approval of forfeiture.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
I have no manager.
Motion to adjourn.